Good morning, Gills fans, and welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. That time of the week again, AD's press conference, going to have a look at that. Obviously, then we'll go on to having a look at the local paper match preview of this Saturday's fixture at MK Dons, predicted lineups, that type of thing. But before I start, I want to say a massive thank you to absolutely everyone. When I started up this channel just over a month ago now, with the help of obviously Boz and Stocky, I decided to do it because I love Gillingham Football Club at the end of the day, but I checked last night and this morning, and 151 subscribers in the first month is just, it's unreal. So thank you very much. It's massively appreciated. For all those that have subscribed, thanks very much. For all those that have given me positive feedback, it's brilliant. And especially to those that have taken the time out to private message me on Twitter and say, you're doing a good job, etc. It means the world. Like I say, I do it because I like doing it, and I do it because I love this football club. So thank you very much. Anyway, enough of me rabbiting on and getting all sentimental and soppy. Straight into AD's press conference this morning. First thing he was asked was about any injuries, team news, etc. for the weekend, and he's confirmed that Scott Wagstaff, Bradley Garmston and Chris Hurd are all out. That's definite. But aside from that, everyone should be available, which is good news. He said Jacko came on probably earlier than ideal last week at home to Peterborough, but he's reacted fine after the game. Had a good week in training. Deji come through it unscathed as well, so excellent. And on top of that, in terms of this MK fixture, he said it's top draw that we've sold our away allocation out, considering obviously that we're struggling at the moment. He said that's top draw from the fans, and it's a massive boost for him and his staff and the players. So a big thanks from him to all you that are travelling up there. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. I've got to work. In regards to the relegation battle, he said of course he's worried about it, he's human, he has feelings, etc, etc. He checks the league table, he checks other teams' results, and it's hurting him and it's hurting everyone involved with the football club. He understands that we're going to be critical as fans, and understands that that's our prerogative as we pay money to go and watch Gillingham Football Club up and down the country, or at home or away and everything like that. So he did one interesting thing. He said that it's back in our hands now after Tuesday night. Well, I'm not sure how it is, AD, to be honest, because I know Bury got smashed by Oxford, but Shrewsbury and Port Vale are below us and they've still got games in hand. So if they win their games in hand and go on to win the rest of their games all season, we drop below them, which means we drop in. So I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but apparently it's in our hands. Obviously it's a massive game for both us and MK Dons. They're not on a great run of form, he stated as well. But I said in the Monday review and on another radio piece that I did last night, that means no odds to us, unfortunately. We tend to help teams that are struggling or on a poor run of form, so we'll see how that goes. He said that we need everybody to turn up. Everyone's got to be at it from the word go, all the 11 that start and then all them substitutes. He touched on MK being a good side. They like to get it down. Their stadium's vast, the pitch is large, and did his little bit. The boys' mentality's been good. They've reacted well since last week, and they're looking forward to it. We've heard that before. There was a little mention, and I touched on this on Monday and said now that it's more hope than expectation. That, I mean, I wrote us off after the Coventry defeat and said we'll go, and then we reacted well and we picked up back-to-back wins, which was great. So that was mentioned, that the hope is we can maybe react to a defeat that seems to be the final nail in the proverbial coffin, and we can dig ourselves out of it. But he said let's worry about MK Dons first on Saturday before we start even thinking about Millwall at home next weekend. Touched on the home support again. He said it's been brilliant. He understands that results have not been what he'd want or what any of the staff or the players would want, and he understands that we're hurting, and he's thankful that we're still turning up and cheering the side on in what are obviously difficult circumstances. Couple of individual players that he mentioned, obviously Zesh Raymond's back at the weekend. Said he was great in the dressing room last week. He is in general. He's a good talker, he's a good leader, and it'd be vital that we get his experience back. We have to agree with that. I can't see how it's a bad thing, because Zesh Raymond's been involved in our only 3 wins under Adrian Pennock. So I think he would go back into the side on Saturday, but we'll get onto that in a bit. Thomas Holy and Stuart Nelson, obviously that situation was touched on. He said that he spoke to Stuart Nelson for about an hour on Friday in training, and Nelson was understandably gutted that he weren't going to be playing, but he said he got over that, and then come Saturday he was the consummate pro, superb in the dressing room, encouraging Thomas and obviously everyone else. And in terms of Thomas's performance. He said after a nervy 10 minutes at the beginning where his kicking was a bit awry, and he thought he was very good. He touched on the save second half that was absolutely outstanding. Said he had no chance with the goal. Can't disagree with that. He called it a special goal. Mentioned obviously it hit the side netting as it went in, so however big you are, you've got no chance of reaching that. But he said he done well in the air. He was commanding in his box, and he has confirmed that he will start on Saturday at MK Dons. So see how that goes. He was asked again about next season, and this got mentioned a couple of weeks ago regarding planning ahead, and he's confirmed that there has been no contract offer for him in terms of next season. He said all he's doing is preparing the football club as best as he can while he's here to give us the best start of doing well or achieving whatever relative success may be in 2017, 2018. So that's the reason for that. But he did say categorically that there's been no contract offer on the table for next season. He said he's doing it because he wants to be organised and he wants to give Gillingham Football Club the best chance of being successful, wherever that may be. Being proactive, that was the big thing he said. There was a little question about recruitment again, but that was done last week, so I'm going to gloss over it. Work ethic, hunger, attitude all have to be spot on as far as AD's concerned, as well as having ability and technical attributes. So contracts, that was brought up again. He's done that. He was asked the same questions. Ryan Jackson and Cody McDonald were two names that were mentioned in terms of running out of contract. He said there's been no talks at the moment. They've got bigger fish to fry, bigger things to worry about. Safety obviously being the main aim at the moment, and then if they can get safe, then they'll think about it. But there's been no contact with any of it at the moment. Was asked how key a big away win would be this Saturday, and obviously we all know that he's going to. It'll be massive if we can pull it off. If we can go there and nick 3 points, have to give it our all. He says we know we can do it, we've got the players to do it, but it's obviously talk is cheap, and it's one thing talking about it, it's another entirely different thing going out there and actually doing it. He was thankful that the injury situation is clearing up a little bit. Like we stated right at the beginning of the piece, there's only 3 that are out, obviously including Aaron Morris, who's massively long term, we know that, but the 3 that are only is Chris Hurd, Bradley Gormston and Scott Wagstaff. They're all definitely out, but apart from that he's got Rory Donnelly's conjunctivitis was cleared up. Joe Quigley returns from international duty. He did state that he didn't get on in the week, Joe Quigley. He was named on the bench for the Republic of Ireland under-21s, but didn't feature, so he's effectively had a week's rest, which is good, and he said the experience with the international team obviously stand him in good stead, but he's just happy that he's come back with no injury in terms of us, which is great. He said him and Harry Cornick are bouncing off each other in training at the moment. Both got a nice spring in their step, they're best buddies, so fingers crossed they can bring out the best in each other if they feature at the weekend. He said that Harry Cornick he was impressed with last week. He was direct and bright and forward thinking. Someone said, is he ready to start games? And he said, yeah, if called upon, but he's obviously not going to give away any team news because, as he said, MK Dons may be watching. Aside from us, just a general question in terms of video technology that was trialled this week in the France v Spain international friendly. He said he's all for it as long as it doesn't slow the game down too much. He thinks goal line technology has been a huge help for referees. It's pretty much instant. He thinks that's great. He said he'd like to see something introduced similar to rugby in regards to officials being mic'd so that everyone can hear their decisions. He said whether it happens is another thing entirely, but he'd like to see that introduced. He said he's not one for bashing referees after games. He said he understands that they're all human beings, and he made a good point, to be fair. They literally get a second to make a decision. They don't get the benefit, as he stated, of Sky Sports and Match of the Day showing multiple angles and replays before making that decision. They have to do it pretty much in an instant. There wasn't a lot else, to be honest. Touched on last Saturday briefly. Said obviously it was massively disappointing. Said yet again that it should have ended 0-0. We all know that. Said it was a good goal that beat them, but we didn't do the right things in terms of the lead up to that goal. But he's looking forward to MK. The players are chomping at the bit. And there was another thing briefly touched on our supporters, how brilliant we are, and he's desperate for us to stay up because we deserve that. He's aware and he did say this in fairness to him, he's aware that his reputation as a player at this football club means absolutely nothing or very little now in terms of him being a football manager. It's a results business and he needs to win more football matches. But he did state obviously that he's thankful for the support, and he's desperately trying to keep us up because we all deserve it. So fingers crossed he can get that done. Anyway, on to MK Dons at the weekend. We travel up there this Saturday for another massive game. Just been having a look at their form. They've only won one of their last 6. That was Coventry. I would say that everybody beats Coventry, but we didn't. But they've kept back-to-back clean sheets, which could be crucial at this time of the year. They went to Port Vale last weekend. I wasn't there obviously, so I'm only assuming it was a turgid, nitty, gritty, horrible affair between two sides who are at the wrong end of the table. But touching back on what Adi keeps saying about how our game with Peterborough should have ended 0-0, they ensured that theirs did, and they picked up a vital point. But one key thing for me, looking ahead to this, and it goes back to us when Adi first took over, and all the teams that we played in and around us at the bottom, like Chesterfield and Shrewsbury and Wimbledon at the time, and Port Vale, Swindon, Coventry, Oldham. Didn't win any of them. I've just had a look at their games this year against teams in and around them. 7 fixtures against Chesterfield, Northampton, Oldham, Bury, Shrewsbury, Coventry and Port Vale. They've taken 12 points from 21 available. Beat Northampton 5-3 in an absolute thriller, which I think was our ex-manager Justin Edinburgh's first game in charge of the Cobblers, ironically. They beat Oldham 1-0, Shrewsbury 2-1, Coventry 1-0. But they kept 5 clean sheets in them 7 games. So they're obviously doing something right there. Robbie Nielsen's obviously targeting games perhaps, or realising that these games are more important than the ones against the teams that are higher in the division. But that's a really good record against sides that are in and around you. You're going to be picking up points there. It's almost double whammy because you pick up points and they don't, so it's almost like a double point situation, so to speak. But yeah, 1 win in 6. They're not on a great run of form, but they're unbeaten. They've only lost 1 of their last 4 at home though. So they beat Coventry, drew with Rochdale. That's not a bad result. Like beat Shrewsbury, as I mentioned. The last defeat at home was Fleetwood on the 18th of February, and Fleetwood were on an absolutely brilliant run at that time, so that's no disgrace either. In terms of key men for them, obviously Kieran Agard's going to cause us problems, I think. Just having a look here, he's had a decent season in terms of output. Who else have they got? Obviously they're where's he gone? Dean Lewington, sorry, that's what I'm trying to find. Dean Lewington, who's been there donkey's years ever since, I think, since they formed, to be fair. He's played regularly again this season, 29 games in the league, so he'll play. Gives them massive experience and leadership from the back. And Ben Reeves has done well in midfield. He's scored, he's got 8 goals this season in all competitions. So yeah, they've got good footballers. Like Adi touched on his press conference, they like to get it down. Kieran Agard, just looking at him now, he's got 11 goals in the league, 13 in all competitions. So he'll be a threat. He's quick, we know that. Depending on what system we play, I'm not sure we'll be able to handle that pace, unfortunately. But fingers crossed we can try and nullify that threat and then hopefully go from there. But in terms of recent goal scoring for him, he's got 2 in his last 7, scored in the win at home to Shrewsbury at the end of February, and was also on target in the home draw with Rochdale. So not prolific at the moment, but he'll be a threat if he plays, we know that. Just a quick look at the paper. Adi's recruiting, that goes back to what we spoke about in his press conference, or what was mentioned, that he's got one eye on next season. It says here that Gills are waiting on Scott Wagstaff, but Adi confirmed this morning that it's not going to happen. Inside it's a nice piece with Nolan Bow, who obviously recently signed his first professional contract recently. He writes for the Shouting Men. Decent approach, to be fair to the young man. The hard work starts now. There's an interesting piece in there. It's a nice little read. I'll leave you lot to find that though. Touches on Bradley Garmston coming back in the next few days from Qatar, and any Garmston return a boost. I've said it plenty of times. Just write him off for the rest of the season and get him properly fit for next year. Another piece with Harry Cornick. He goes on about Bailey Cargill and how he sets the standard in terms of loan spells now. Saying that he's obviously made his debut last week and he's hoping to push on in the last few games and shows what he's about. And obviously he aspires to do what Bailey Cargill did, and obviously we all know what he's talking about, that Bailey recently made his Premier League debut at Old Trafford for Bournemouth, so fingers crossed we can get the best out of him in the remaining half dozen games or so, and he can keep us the right side of that dreaded line. AD urging fans to not give up on us, etc, etc, so similar stuff again that he spoke about in the press conference. Anyway, I'm now going to do my prediction and how I think we should line up. Right, considering the players that we've got available this weekend, and the fact that AD's already confirmed Thomas Holy is already going to start in goal, so obviously that one's picked, that's already done. I would like to see us line up as following this week, and all Cody lovers, do not get too irate with me. This is how I would line up, if you can see that there. So I would like to see us play in a 4-2-3-1 formation. We have got, for me, to be solid. We have got to give ourselves a chance and a platform and a base to work from in terms of not conceding too many goals and then giving ourselves a shot of creating enough chances to pinch something. So I would like to see us go with Thomas Holy in goal. Square pegs, round holes, but we haven't got a choice. I'll go Deji Osulaja at left back, Max Amar and the returning at Zesh Raymond in the middle, and Ryan Jackson at right back. I think obviously Raymond's experience and talking and leadership skills could be key in terms of setting us up to try and combat the threat of Kieran Agard and his pace. Jacko and Deji will hopefully do that from fullback. They're both pretty quick, no slouches. In front of them I would have Mark Byrne and Josh Wright sitting and protecting. Burner can probably do what we'd look at as probably more of the horrible, ugly side of the game. Josh Wright can then hopefully get on the ball and try and act as some sort of deep line playmaker, but we need a shield in front of that back four. I can't reiterate it enough. We've got to give ourselves a chance and be solid defensively to then go and get something at the other end. I know I might be contradicting myself then by only playing one up front, but if we can play proper wingers and get Daki close enough to a centre forward, then I think we'll be able to create some chances and fashion some shots on goal. So for that reason, I'm going to go Lee Martin left wing, Bradley Dack in the number 10 role, and Harry Cornick from the right. I know that's a shock, and it looks like I want us to play with wingers as wingers. And maybe slightly controversial, I would start Joe Quigley up front. I know I might get bashed a little bit here, but he's a fair size. And if we're only going to play one up there, we need someone that can play with his back to goal. The reason I've dropped Cody McDonald is purely because playing as a lone striker doesn't suit his game. We tended to resort to long ball far too early for Christ knows how long now. So if we're going to do that, let's put a lump up there, a big man who can flick it on and win headers and hopefully get it on his chest and play with his back to goal and link play. So if we've got two wingers and Bradley Dack in beyond, then hopefully we can get them running in beyond, and maybe even Josh Wright from deeper. So yeah, that's my thinking behind it. If we line up like that, it's only one player out of position, I think, and that's Deji Osulaja, because we've got no other left back in the squad. And my bench would be Stuart Nelson, Emmanuel Osadebe, because he can probably cover centre back and right back. Jake Essenthaler obviously can come in the middle. Elliot List can give us pace and an outlet if we need him. And purely on the fact that we really need to win the game, so that's why I plumped for Rory Donnelly, Josh Parker and Cody McDonald all on the bench. It might look a bit offensive and a little bit top heavy, but chances are we're going to need a goal at some point, so that's why I've plumped for that. In terms of a prediction, and how, like I stated, that MK Dons have been very good against teams in and around them. They've not conceded many, Northampton aside. My head says 2-0 to MK Dons. My heart is praying that we can go up there and prove everyone wrong and react well again and dig ourselves out of another massive hole and pinch something. But if I was a betting man, I'd sadly go 2-0 to MK Dons. Anyway, that's enough from me today. Please keep subscribing, liking, sharing, etc., etc., and up the Gills.